It's a common source of complaint that scientific findings in safety research don't play a very large role in the debate on green gene technology. What would be your advice to scientists or to politicians to improve the situation?
Ja, also ich denke mal, in erster Linie würde mein Rat an die Wissenschaft gehen.
Well, my first advice would be to scientists. I believe that findings should be communicated in a clearer and broader manner. As a journalist in a daily newspaper, I often face the problem of writing an article as quickly as possible. I need relevant information, and I need concise information as well as a reliable assessment. These are things that I hope to get from scientists, and it isn't always easy in this field, for example, to get the information quickly and compactly that I need when addressing a topic such as gene technology. This implies that for the entire field of safety research, that science must undertake more, that scientists must present their findings to the public. What politicians then derive from this, or the conclusions to which they arrive, is another question. I aim myself more towards the public. As a journalist, I want to inform the public and to do so in such a manner that it is well informed and not simply fed with suspicions or speculation.
Und nicht mit irgendwelchen Vermutungen oder Spekulationen.
In this context, how do you view possible shortcomings by journalists with regard to the presentation of the relevant scientific findings in safety research?
One must respond that, as a rule, journalists are deployed very broadly and the topics they address often occupy a wide spectrum. Gene technology appears often in the newspaper, in the political section, for example, and often is treated by people who lack a scientific background, so to speak. If this background isn't there, it may then occur that they make a faulty assessment. This isn't an excuse. I believe that you need more content in a newspaper. This includes competence in the natural sciences, not only with regard to gene technology, but with regard to other topics as well.
Also es geht ja sowohl bei den Wissenschaftlern, wie Sie gesagt haben, als auch bei Journalisten eine.
So it's about a form of transportation of information for consumers, for people, by scientists, as you have mentioned, as well as by journalists. And often it's said that the inadequate acceptance of gene technology is linked with inadequate information. Is this simply a lapse of the media, which don't communicate this information well to the consumer and thereby fosters inadequate acceptance?
First, I'd like to say that the media is certainly not a machine that produces acceptance. The media reports on that which is under negotiation on the marketplace of information. In this respect, the media is a component of the misery in which gene technology finds itself. Another component, naturally, is the fact that people are very emotionally motivated on the topic of nutrition. In the moment that a food product becomes contaminated with bad news, it simply becomes very difficult somehow to correct such emotional processes.
Many scientists are of the opinion that they already contribute very much towards the dissemination of information on safety research. Your stance or opinion in this regard contradicts this somewhat. Could it be that scientists do not find the right language when they attempt to communicate with the public?
It's always the case that scientists naturally reach a more differentiated conclusion. This is the nature of things. Reality is complex, and one cannot simply illustrate a complex reality in 50 or 60 lines in the newspaper or in a radio contribution that's just a few minutes long. Two sides clash here. On one side are the scientists who see matters in a differentiated manner and who try to avoid absolutism. This is naturally a part of scientific thinking. One remains skeptical and states that things indeed could be different. The public perceives this as uncertainty, that one actually or apparently doesn't know what is what. And of course, under certain conditions, the consumer then says, well, they're not so sure, so I better leave it alone.
As a conclusion, does that also mean perhaps that scientists themselves, per se, actually can't be the right communicators for such relevant information in your view?
No, that's not it. I believe that it means that scientists must be ready to deal with the public in public. that they must be prepared to accept criticism. Of course, there are scientists who do this as well, who discuss their issues with others in public, but one cannot generalize. A prerequisite is that people be prepared to be criticized sharply and loudly, and in the moment in which I expose myself, the danger arises in this politically controversial field that I will be severely criticized. This is a part of the whole. It is also a part of the whole that one must be prepared sometimes to communicate a simple and striking message. American researchers already do this. There are examples of many who very clearly are able to formulate their messages and vision. This is, of course, not only a problem in safety research in gene technology, but is generally valid for the entire field of gene technology, so much so that it is sometimes very difficult to find scientists who communicate an orientation.